Hello everybody and welcome to the answer portion of the question and answer video that I posted previous to this one. Sebastian is sitting right next to me, so you might hear his toys. It's the end of the day, we're ready to snuggle in. We already took a little nap together. I cleaned up the house, my usual stuff. Did some cardio, did some dishes, did some laundry, and now we're ready to kind of snuggle in. But I didn't want to end this video without answering a couple of questions. I do have them saved, just random questions on my iPad. I don't know how many I'm going to answer. Gio is off on Friday, so I think he has his own questions that he has saved and he's gonna answer. So you can look forward to seeing him answer some questions on Friday, but let's get right into it. The first question says, before Sebastian goes to school, will there be any special training for them? For example, if he should pull out his G-tube? And the answer to that is yes. That was one of my top questions when I was interviewing the school. I don't know how many children who go to the school have G-tubes. I don't know how many of them have G-tubes like Sebastian. I would assume a good portion of them, but you can never assume anything. So I did ask, who's going to be administering his feeds? Who, if he should need medication, is there somebody who's familiar with the G-tube, knows how to work the machine, the pump? What if the pump gets clogged? All of that stuff. And what if he pulls out his G-tube because he's done it before? He's done it at home with me next to him. And thankfully there's a nurse there. There's a registered nurse, a few that work at the school on staff. If anything should happen, for example, if Sebastian does pull out his G-tube and the nurse for some reason is with another student, can't get to him or isn't comfortable replacing his tube, I'm only 10 minutes away, and I asked either way if they call me so I can be there. But if the nurse isn't available or something, I would be able to put it back in. But there is a registered nurse that works at the school. Yeah. Okay, next question. Likely mentioned this before. He's getting into that toy. He said, you've likely mentioned this before. I'm wondering what some of the most common characteristics of folks with CDLS share. That's a great question because it actually leads into Sebastian's diagnosis. I know I've mentioned it before, but I don't know how many people actually caught on or really realized what I was saying. Sebastian was diagnosed with CDLS specifically by physical characteristics alone. Most of the common things that you see different about him are very common in other people with CDLS. For example, the big, bushy, arched eyebrows, the long eyelashes, the excessive hair. He's got a little, what they call like an upturned nose, and his lips on the side are kind of downturned. A typical child usually just, their mouth is kind of already naturally in like a smile. People with CDLS a lot of the time have downturned corners of their mouth and upturned noses, which if you've seen before, whether it's on our channel or maybe you've noticed or made the connection yourself, it's oftentimes why people with CDLS get compared to like Whovilles from the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, because the Grinch and all of the Whovilles have little upturned noses. And that's why a lot of people think that children with CDLS and people with CDLS resemble the Grinch. It's funny. It's cute when you notice the comparison. It's not cute when people try to be mean and use it against you. So a lot of moms, especially the first time I ever heard it, I took a lot of offense to it. I was really kind of hurt by that. Like, wow, they're calling my baby the Grinch. But then if you like Google pictures of the Grinch when he was a baby, and look at pictures when Sebastian when he was a baby, to compare them, it's funny. It's uncanny. So, but yes, physical characteristics are a lot of the ones that you see on Sebastian. I don't know if you've ever noticed before, but his pinkies kind of like turn in a little bit. That's something that's pretty common with children who have CDLS. But again, every child is different. The Cornelia de Lange Syndrome Foundation actually posted a picture of what characteristics look like on a person with CDLS. So I'm going to post that now so you can take a look at that. And I'm sure that you will recognize quite a few of them in Sebastian. But yes, Sebastian was fully diagnosed on physical characteristics alone because Sebastian is actually a mosaic CDLS child. And what that means is his genetic code doesn't actually reflect CDLS. There's certain syndromes, like Down syndrome, for example, is a very common one that people know. You know, there's a certain gene that gets mutated with that, and they say, okay, this is the gene that's associated with Down syndrome. With CDLS, there's a few different types of mutations that when you run a genetic panel and those mutations are mutated, you know that that is reflective of CDLS. Sebastian, none of his genes are reflective of CDLS. He was diagnosed solely on his physical characteristics, another one being low birth weight. He was only 3 pounds when he was born, but so yes, it all kind of ties in. Physical characteristics play such a large role in CDLS. All of the people and children are obviously affected differently, but they all look so similar. If I were to see another child across the room or, you know, in a stadium, I could probably tell you right away if they had CDLS or not because their characteristics are so specific to the syndrome. So that was a great question. Thank you. Another great question, and I think a lot of people maybe get confused by this, and even it's hard for me to explain correctly. I think one day eventually I want to have a conversation with his cardiac nutritionist so she can help explain it. But the question is, I know that he gets nutrition through his stomach. Will he always need that? Because you give him food by mouth. Please give that sweet boy a hug and a kiss. So Sebastian, because of his heart, the amount of fluid that he has in his body has to be monitored. So the amount of food that he gets, the amount of liquid that he gets in each meal and throughout the entire day was all created and monitored by a cardiac specialist nutritionist. So a nutritionist who treats patients who have fluid problems in their heart. So his fluid intake is all monitored. It's all down to a science, and how much like fluid he can have in his body. But when you talk about eating by mouth too, so what we do sometimes is, because I don't want to put too much fluid in his body and I never know, it's hard to, when you start feeding them by mouth, to kind of keep track of that. So if he has a big meal by mouth, we'll skip his feed or we'll only give him half of his feed. The amount of calories that he has is set and measured by the formulas, both of the formulas that he has. So we know how many calories he's getting. But for example, if he has, you know, soup with avocado and chicken and starches, we know that by skipping one of his milk feeds because he ate so much by mouth, he's not losing any calories. If anything, he's probably getting a little bit more calories. So we just kind of judge it each meal. And if he ends up eating a lot by mouth, then like I said, we'll skip a milk feed or we'll do half of a milk feed. But the question is wondering, will he always need the tube? And the issue with that is, and it may change over time, and like with speech therapy and things, Sebastian, as of now, has never been able to handle liquids by mouth. It has to be thick and pureed. So when you're thinking about medications and things, Sebastian's on a daily seizure medication as well as many other medications that are liquid that I guess we could like mix them into his food and he could get it that way. But that medication has to be, you know, he has to get that specific amount every day. So if we try to mix it into one of his meals and he doesn't eat all of the meals, then he wouldn't be getting that dose of medication. And also it doesn't taste very great. I've accidentally had some on my finger before and tasted it. It's not good. So the issue with Sebastian, do I think one day that he could be fully fed by mouth? Absolutely. I think he could get there with the amount that he's eating now and the calories he's getting. I think absolutely, but it's the medications. He's going to need the tube for a little while longer until we can get him to a place where he can have food by mouth. Liquid by mouth, I should say. He chokes on any liquid we put in his mouth. If it's too thin, he'll choke on it. Right? Want to say hi? Hi. Good job. He's got a little rash on his chin right now. He gets that every year, but last year it was on his chin. This year it's down here, and it's probably from chewing on his blanket, but that's why we're kind of trying to switch up, and I got him this different toy so he can kind of chew on the toy and less on the blanket. We're trying to get him off the blanket. Anyway, moving on. Let's see what we have. Somebody said, do you think his right arm will get as good as his left? Was his right arm less stiff when he was younger? Your earlier videos have he appeared that he could use that arm more. Yeah, I think when he was younger, I think, you have to think of a baby when babies are brand new and when they're young, their bodies are so loose, right? Like a baby isn't going to be super tight when you change them. It's very loose, but as they get older and they start building muscle and they start figuring out how to use their body, it gets a little bit, they get stronger. That was the same thing for Sebastian. When he was younger and rolling around, it seemed like he had more use of his right arm. But as he's gotten older and having a stiff body and stiff joints, that's a part of his syndrome. We're just doing a lot of therapy, as you probably saw, doing a lot of therapy with that right arm, rotation therapy, stretching it, trying to just loosen that up. Every single day we're trying, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, to just kind of get that arm moving and stretch. So that's a great observation. He used to have a lot more range of motion with that arm when he was younger, not so much anymore, but the only thing we can do is continue to stretch it. A lot of people mention like Botox shots too for the stiffness in his neck and also his arm. That's something that we consider. I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but it's definitely something that I know has been beneficial to other children and other people, and something that is definitely a consideration. Somebody said, what does it mean when Sebastian puts his fist up to his throat? I always worry he has pain or can't swallow. I hope that's not the case. We don't know. He's always done that. And if you'll notice, I do that sometimes. So I don't know if that's something he got from me or if it's just a funny thing between us. I always reach for my neck for comfort. Don't know why. Sebastian seems to mainly do it when he swallows. He has a small airway and he has a very specific airway. There's only one surgeon at the hospital who can intubate him beautifully and right on the first try. So his airway is very, very specific, but we don't think he's in any pain when he swallows. I think no, you're not. He's shaking his head. No, I'm not in any pain. No, I don't think he's in pain. I think really eating food to him is not a workout, but it takes work for him to eat. And I think that's just his brain making a connection that there's something in his mouth and something's going down. Because, we take a drink of water or whatever and it's like nothing, we're just used to swallow and you move on. You don't even think about it. For Sebastian, doing things like that, it's work for him. So I think when he grabs his throat, I think that's just him recognizing that something's happening and something's kind of going down in that area. He can feel it. So I think that's the case, but, I wish he could tell us. I don't know. What do you think? What you doing over here, mister? What? Getting close to bedtime, huh? It's really dark outside already. Where's your blankie so I can clean your mouth? Why are you spitting? Huh? Why are you spitting? No spitting. No spitting. He's so cute. All right. Another question is, have you looked into or have you thought of homeschool for your son? Homebound schooling is an option for Sebastian. I think he would benefit being in a social area. I do. I really do genuinely feel that. It's been very, very hard for me to think about letting Sebastian go to school and be under somebody. You want to go to school? What? It's been really hard for me to think about leaving Sebastian with somebody else. I think every parent goes through that when you send your child to school. It's hard to trust anybody these days. Any day. It's hard to trust people that you don't know. And with a kid like Sebastian who can't communicate his day to me and tell me what he's experienced and things like that, it's even harder. So I have thought about homebound services, that the teachers could come to our house. And I've talked about it a lot with his pediatrician, because his pediatrician that you guys probably saw in one of my other videos, he is kind of worried about sending Sebastian to school too. He's like, you have to know that he is going to get sick very often, which is true. He will get sick. There will be germs. It's bound to happen. It's going to happen. But I don't think that it's fair to not give it a try. I want him I want him to have a little bit of independence, whether he knows it or not. He deserves to be a 6-year-old who gets to go to school and be around other people and get a break from mom and benefit from other people, helping him. So we will send him to school. I have to cut the cord a little bit. Having a hard time cutting the cord on that one. But he will go to school. Having said that, if he gets sick so many times or to the point that it's now not beneficial to his health, if he gets sick multiple times and ends up in the hospital multiple times, that is when we would make the decision to request a homebound service where we would take him out of that environment because it's not beneficial to him anymore. So if he goes to school and, ends up in the hospital one too many times, most likely we would transfer him home and we would enroll him in a homebound program. And basically what that means is all of the services that he receives at school, those, maybe not those specific people, but people who do that job, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all of those therapists they'll come to our house and he'll receive those services at home. So they have a great plan for him. But I do think that we will try to send him. Okay. So this is a good question. My question is, are you planning on a lifetime commitment of Sebastian living with you? Yes. For as long as I'm alive and able to, Sebastian will be with us. Again, I can't imagine him being with somebody else. We have, thankfully, a lot of family who, God forbid, if something happened to Gio and I know that they would make sure that Sebastian is well taken care of and in a loving environment to the best of their knowledge. But yeah, as long as we are alive and able to, Sebastian will be with us. And if that changes, it's really hard to plan for that because I don't say this in a mean way, but it's almost as if I were to ask any other typical parent, if something happened to you tomorrow, where would your children go? It's like you don't really think. You're like, I don't really have an answer for that. I don't know because I don't think about not being here. I don't think about that. But let's just say, God forbid, something happened to Gio and I tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that Sebastian would go live with his grandparents. Gio's sister would probably help out, his godmother. They know everything about Sebastian. They know all of his doctors. And if some people in the comments are hearing that and thinking that that's selfish, my mother-in-law would tell you that that's what family does for each other. They step up, and without a doubt, Sebastian would be taken care of. And up until the day that nobody else, was available or if it got too hard, no matter what, I know that he is gonna be well taken care of. Somebody was wondering if Sebastian will ever walk or not. We don't know. I don't know. Some children with CDLS start walking, at 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, some earlier. Some don't take their first steps until their teens or early 20s. I think a lot of that will be, we'll discover more of that when he gets to school and he gets in, real therapy positions and different tools that are used to help children start to get in the position of walking. But there's so much that goes into that. It's, Sebastian's back being straight and his legs being straight and his feet being on the ground, all of those things that we do in therapy with him now, straightening his legs, stretching his hips. It's, it's all related. So it's a full body training situation for him to get to the point that he will walk. I don't know. Never say never. Somebody said my question is, why can't Sebastian talk? It's just a part of his syndrome. It's the way that his brain processes information. I think that he understands a lot. I really do. Some children and people with CDLS are verbal, completely verbal, and some of them are not. It's just how the syndrome affects their brain and that their brain being able to make that connection and have that function. That's CDLS. Somebody wants to know if Gio and I ever go on date nights, go on weekend trips, just me and Gio. If so, what are our favorite places? Gio and I do sushi dinner every single Friday night, and I would say once a month, Gio goes to his grandparents' house for the weekend. So we have a weekend away with Sebastian is spending time with his grandparents, and we are just able to be at home. But yeah, every Friday we go on a date night. Sometimes we switch it up, not very often, but I like the restaurant that we go to. Gio loves the sushi there, and I have started getting like cooked, like shrimp tempura, which is like cooked shrimp sushi rolls, and they have like a jalapeno roll that I really like there. And I also love their chicken and their veggies there. I'm a pretty simple person, and we're very routine. So the fact that we go to the same restaurant every single Friday night at the same time, it's just very us. It's just how we are. And then once a year, Gio and I go on a week vacation, usually out of the country, just him and I. Once a year, usually like October, November, December time. We just went to Belize a couple months ago. So every year we do get away for about seven to 8 days. Gio or Sebastian will stay with Gio's parents, and we're able to just kind of get away and reconnect and just be, you know, a couple and not have to be parents. And that's super, super beneficial. And it's so important for our relationship, you know, to just kind of reconnect and just remember what it's like to just be a couple. And very, very, very blessed to be able to do that. But yes, Gio and I get plenty of time. Somebody wants, sorry if the quality is weird. I'm using the front camera with the light and it's nighttime, so the lighting's not very great. But anyway, someone's wondering any more surgeries for this year. Yeah, most likely Sebastian's gonna have to have surgery on his eyelids. He's got this whole swollen eyelid thing going on. He has a cyst, or also called the chalazion. But I'm also wondering still if that material in his eye from his first eyelid lift surgery, kind of wondering if that material is rejecting. We'll follow up with the eye doctor in January, but yes, I think the only surgery as of now that we have planned is going to be his eyelid lifts. He has a condition called ptosis. What you doing? Woo! Go Bogey! Go Bogey! Go Bogey! Go Bogey! Go Bogey! Woo! Get it! Get it! Get it! Get it! Go Bogey! Go Bogey! Sebastian has a condition called ptosis, and it basically it just means he has droopy eyelids. So he's gonna get surgery where they basically go into the eyelids and into the eyebrow, and they tighten that muscle, and it lifts the eyelids up. So that will be surgery probably January or February, if I had to guess. Okay, I think I'm only gonna answer one more because the video is already probably super, super long and you're probably getting tired of listening to me. I think one of the most common questions that we get too is what I would either tell myself, as now having all of the experience I have with Sebastian, what I would tell myself when I first had him, or what I would tell another mom who just found out their baby is going to be special needs or have different needs, or, you know, basically advice to my older self or another new mom with no experience. And honestly, I mean this genuinely with my whole entire heart. If you are going through a new diagnosis with somebody you love, or you know somebody who has received a diagnosis that they don't know much about, please, please do not Google it. That sounds like such lame advice, but it is so true. I spent so much of my early weeks of motherhood in complete turmoil, Googling CDLS and reading the worst of it. And, you know, just there's so many facts in your face, like, oh, your kid's never gonna do this, never gonna do this, never gonna do this, they might not survive, all of these things. And this just isn't relative to just CDLS. It's a lot of syndromes where they basically, Google just tells you how terrible it is. And life is so good even with CDLS. It's okay. Life looks nothing like what I Googled at all. Nothing that I read in those first few weeks of life is how we have experienced life. And I wasted so much time and so many tears and many, many therapy appointments over what I read on Google. And I wish that I would not have done that. And so if I can give any advice from the bottom of my heart to somebody going through something that they need more information on, talk to your doctors, talk to other families. There are tons of support groups on Facebook, all over. There's tons of support groups where you can get information from people who have been through what you're going through or are going to go through. That is the most beneficial research you can do for yourself and your loved one. Amen. Cross my heart. Right hand on the Bible. Do not Google anything. It's not worth it. Anyways, you guys, I think that's it for this video. I'm very tired. I'm starting to slow down a little bit. It is, I think, 5:45. So I'm going to put this video together. And then Sebastian, I'm sure, is going to probably go to bed around like 6:30 or so. He's already getting pretty sleepy over here. I'll let you say goodnight. Hey, mister. You want to say goodnight? Can you say bye-bye? Bye-bye. Like this, bye-bye. Yeah, can you? Can you say bye-bye? Bye-bye. Bye-bye. What you think? Don't worry about his poor little lip over here. We got some cream that we put on it, but I can only put it on at night when he's in his bed and swaddled because I don't want him to get it inside of his mouth. So we're putting cream on it. It's just that winter drool rash. Yeah, he gets it every year, right? What you think? You gonna say bye-bye? You say everybody will see you soon? Say bye, everybody. Love you. Thanks for your questions. Yeah, bye-bye. All right, guys, we'll see you soon.